A lot of attorneys, aren't able to make that jump from solo to multi-attorney firms. And I believe it has a lot to do with the attorney transitioning from solopreneur to a leader, being able to delegate and create a management system and create processes. Welcome back to the Sterling Family Law Show, the podcast designed to help family law owners build the firm of their dreams. I'm your host, Tyler Dolph. I'm also the CEO of our law firm only marketing consultancy called Rocket Clicks that was born out of our own law firm, Sterling Lawyers, that has grown to over 27 attorneys. Today, we continue our owner-operator series. We interview Bob Nice of the Nice Law Firm out of Indiana. He has more than 30 years of experience running his firm. He's grown it to over 7 attorneys and has some amazing insights. I really hope you enjoy today's episode. Robert, thank you so much for your time and joining us on the podcast today. Really excited to learn more about you. You've been running your own law firm for a number of years. You do a lot of different things. Give us a little introduction and backstory on who you are and what the Nice Law Firm is all about.
Well, my name is Bob Nice, and I am the managing partner, founder, and owner of the Nice Law Firm. Based in Indianapolis, we have 7 offices throughout Indiana. I come from rural Indiana, a little one-horse town of 2,300 people, 12,000 in the county. And I knew I was going to be a pharmacist from the time I was a freshman in high school. My parents' best friend was a local druggist, and that's what I was going to do. But when I was the summers in high school, I would go up to the courthouse and watch what was going on, and the judge would say, "Why are you here?" And I said, "You know what? I want to understand how this works." So off I went to pharmacy school. I got in and got through, and it's a fairly tough nut to crack academically, so I did well in school, but something happened midway. It was pretty cool. It was the Ford Pinto trial was held in my hometown, and there's more about that on my website. If you look at nicelawfirm.com, you can hear the full story. But the judge back there invited me to come home to watch the opening statements. And I thought, wow, wouldn't it be pretty cool to stand up in front of strangers and try to persuade them to your point of view? So I went back, took the LSAT, the way we make great decisions in our life. My then girlfriend, future wife and mother of my children, asked me what I was going to do after pharmacy school. I said, I'm going to law school. And she said, where? And I said, well, being a Purdue guy, anywhere but Indiana University. And so she said, there's this great school near me, which was Philadelphia, Villanova. And so I went to Villanova. I came back and did what they tell you to do, which is go to work for a big law firm. And so I did that for 6 years and worked with very talented lawyers. But I did not like the hierarchy that I was constrained within. And then 6 years passed, and I got to a point where I worked on this case where they told me that they picked me because I'd worked on the East Coast or went to school on the East Coast. We were local counsel for a $5 billion securities litigation case. And they sent me to Chicago every other week for 6 months. And I took notes, went to depositions with 40 lawyers, which is really pretty boring, frankly. And when we were done, the firm got a $400,000 fee. And I was so brash that I went in November and said, hey, you know what? I did a really good job for you. And at that time, I was making about 40 grand, I think, as a senior associate. And this is 30 years ago, but or 35, I guess. But I said, I'd like a $10,000 bonus at the end of the year. And he literally said, well, you little ungrateful son of a gun, you'll take whatever you get and be glad you get it. And they gave me $3,000. And so they gave me $3,000, and I didn't leave that day, but that was the day I knew I was leaving. And I spent 8 months planning my departure. And when I gave my notice, my boss looked me in the eye and said, you will never make it on your own. And
how about that for motivation?
Today I could buy and sell him. So my first point I want to make to everybody is know your why. Why are you doing? Why are you going to leave the steady paycheck? Why are you going to go out on your own? Because there's nothing steady about being self-employed. It's up and down. And the long-term trend should be up, should do well. But in the interim, it is a lot of zigs and zags.
Yeah, success is not a straight line. That is 100% for sure.
An old lawyer told me when I was a young lawyer, he said, avoid partners. The only reason to have a partner is if you really, really need one. And there may be times when you do. But the old joke is the only ship that won't sail is a partnership. And I had a couple along the way, and it was never a good decision. I literally had one circumstance where I came in one morning and one of the offices down the hall was empty. The furniture was gone even, and my bank account had been drawn down to damn near zero, the partner account. So that was an unpleasant experience. So George Washington said, avoid entangling alliances. That was true 250 years ago in international relations. It is also true today in business relationships. So I would say avoid partners if you can at all.
Is that it's an interesting sentiment, and I'm on the opposite end. That I have a business partner who I adore. He gave me my first chance, and it's been a great partnership. So obviously, there's certainly nuances to that, but the narrative around it is to better control your own destiny. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and another horrible experience when I was first starting, very first start, we had an affiliation of 3 lawyers, and one day I get a phone call from somebody who I peripherally knew, and he said, "Bob, what's going on over there?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, we're about ready to lock you out." Why? "Well, you haven't paid your rent in over 3 months." I said, "Well, that's interesting because there was one of the 3 was in control of the lease, and I was paying him, and I went over to see the third guy and said, "Are you paying your rent to Art?" And he said, "Yeah." So we had to have a heart-to-heart with Art and find out what was going on. And he was not doing well, and he was using our rent money to cover his own expenses. And so that's just another maybe why once bit, twice shy. And I've been bit a couple of times. That we have 13 lawyers, 24 total team members, and I run the show and I own the show. And I wake up in the morning resolute that I will not fire myself today. So I at least have that comfort of knowing that I will continue to be engaged with a nice law firm.
I'd love to double click on that point a little bit. You've been able to expand your law firm. A lot of attorneys, aren't able to make that jump from solo to multi-attorney firms. And I believe it has a lot to do with the attorney transitioning from solopreneur to a leader, being able to delegate and create a management system and create processes. Did you find that as you were going from a solo practitioner on your own when you left the big firm to then hiring a few employees? Tell me about that evolution. What were some of the
So you use the right word, delegate. So if you have what it takes to get through law school, you cannot help but be incredibly self-reliant. And so the problem is then you get out of law school and you think no one can do what I can do, and I'm not delegating anything. And I think it was Jim Collins who said that perfect is the enemy of the good. So you've got to learn. My son, much wiser than me, went to business school. And what he learned in business school is that his job was to create jobs and then hire somebody to do every job he creates. And today he's in private equity and they own some incredible amount of companies. So he just keeps building businesses and adding people to it and finding great people. So attorneys are not, by their nature, good delegators. And so that's why many, if not most attorneys, are fairly poor business people, as opposed to great practitioners, skilled in their art, but running a business requires a different skill set.
how'd you attain it? Like what did you do to get over that hump?
Well, the first step, and I think the 12 steps, is telling you that you've got to recognize the problem, right? You've got to recognize that what is my limitation? Well, it's me. You got to look in the mirror. I'm the limitation. I have to grow and evolve, or I can't get this done. So you start looking at the tasks that you do that are repetitive and say, well, gosh, I don't want to do that. Maybe I did more to my paralegal. Okay. Maybe I'm tired of the bookkeeping, even though I'm really good at bookkeeping. You know what? I know bookkeeping cold. But I can't sit around and do those transactions all day long anymore, especially today. So it's evolved. I had a couple of employees, part-time employees. I got pictures from the other staff, taking a picture of my part-time bookkeeper, literally with his head down asleep at his desk. That wasn't good. Today I have a virtual bookkeeper with a company that can scale as I continue to grow. It can get bigger and bigger. They have bookkeeper, controller, CFO levels. So whatever I need, they can do. And that's a great delegation for me to be able to have them do that. It's an evolution. The other thing that goes hand in hand with that is efficiencies. So unbelievably, I hate to say this, but I'm 66 years old. Can't believe it. I've been at this for 40 years this month, sworn in October of 85. So there were no computers when I got out of school. The old partners were just excited that copiers had just showed up and they didn't have to hire secretaries to strike through. He called them strikers, not secretaries, because they had to pound through 7 pieces of carbon paper to make their copies. So since then, of course, technology's arrived and I've embraced it. When I got out of school, I was the first, this 40 lawyer firm, they had just gotten a Lexus terminal and I was the only one who knew how to use it because at the end of law school, this little red thing with a keyboard, and some of the partners thought, we don't want, if Bob can do 4 hours of research in 15 minutes, we don't want him doing that because we want him to bill 4 hours. And that is a short-term view to a long-term issue. Technology is a great equalizer. And so...
Same is true for AI today, right?
Well, I'm old enough to remember pre-internet. There was a time when there was no internet. There was no microwave when I grew up. So life has evolved and you have to evolve with it. And so I made a commitment. Most of my peer group continue through their careers to be technophobes. They let somebody else do it. They still want to write down their time entries and give them to a secretary and have them punched into a Word document. Well, the world's moved past that. So AI today is bigger and badder than the internet was when it showed up. It's moving faster. So we have a committee in our firm on AI. And a year ago, 9 months ago, I guess, really first in January, this is 10, we met and talked about how could we use AI in the firm. And the only thing we were doing was I learned how to make some really cool PowerPoint presentation images with AI. You could have, I want to be on the stage giving a talk with 6 leprechauns out in the audience, and poof, there it is. It's just so cool. But since then, now I use Read AI to summarize all of my virtual meetings, and I have a weekly marketing meeting with our marketing coordinator, and 30 minutes before that meeting, it remembers to send me the outline from last week so I know exactly what our bullet points were, my expectations, and I can hold him accountable for what he's supposed to get done. And now we're using it to summarize documents, depositions, things like that. I'm limited in what I use for generative AI, but boy, is it out there, and use it for generating standard operating procedures in the business. Fantastic. And just this week, we're looking at using AI for client intake. And it's literally, AI will now have a conversation with you, and it sounds like a 30-year-old pretty woman who's so interested and empathetic in your problems. It's nothing short of amazing. So in technology, you have to embrace it, don't fear it. And that leads me to another point, which is remote working. So in March of 2020, Eli Lilly, based in Indianapolis, sent their people home. And I thought, wow, Eli Lilly knows more about healthcare than I do. So I gathered everybody and says, you know what, we got to work from home. But we had made good decisions along the way technologically so that it took us one day to move our computers and our 2 screens and webcams and everything, dedicated phones, home. And after that, we were right back in business. And a bunch of firms, some failed, many were crushed by the pandemic, and it really had a minimal impact on us because we were ready. And I guess within that, you save a lot of time. If you don't, I'm sitting in my home right now. I have an office in my home here. I have one in my home in Arizona. And I have the real office, a great big building. It's got the sign on it. Thank God it's got the sign on the building for advertising, because I only go there about 3-4 times a month for appointments. It's all of our 7 offices, only 2 have people in them every day.
Yeah, we're very much the same. At Sterling, we have over 25 offices, and we use 5 of them as hubs, and then leverage the others for appointments and marketing.
Go there when you need to,
That's
right?
right.
Go there when you need to. That's absolutely right. So there's a lot of benefits from that, and most employees appreciate it, enjoy it. We had one lawyer leave because he missed the society of being down the hall from somebody, but maybe he just wanted to drink too much coffee and tell stories. I don't know which way that went, because I'm still available, whether I'm here or out of state. I'm able to run the business, and most courtroom work, if it's non-evidentiary, most of it is done remotely. Instead of having to drive 45 minutes each way, go through security, say, "Hi, Judge, how are you? Good to see you today. How are the kids? Fine, thank you, Bob." 10 minutes on getting dates for the litigation. Then, okay, see you next time. Thanks, Bob. See you. Bye-bye. Thank you, Judge. Boom. So it's just evolved dramatically over those 40 years that I've been in practice, and we've embraced that.
Hey, family law firm leaders, my partner, Tony Carls, just released his book where he lays bare our precise blueprint for growing Sterling lawyers from 0 to 17 million. This is the blueprint that we still use daily. And Tony explains it in very simple terms. The truth is, this is not simple to do. Success requires and demands hard work, but if you have the patience and the work ethic to do it, your family law firm will succeed.
Bob, I'd like to shift quickly to the architecture of your firm. Obviously, you've grown, you have over 7 attorneys, you have multiple practice areas. Was that always the plan? Or did you start in one, and then as you got referrals and leads, you built out others? Tell us about why you decided to go multi-practice.
So, first of all, when I was a young lawyer, I joined everything. I was out there in the world, going to church, to Kiwanis, to Toma, volunteering for the Cancer Society, going to kids' Little League Baseball, whatever it was, and I was shaking hands and handing out cards. And people have different problems. It's not all one area, often. And so I learned to do a lot of different things, and I found it fascinating. And sometimes you got to be working hard to stay just ahead of the knowledge curve of what your client knows, because the client will do everything to become an expert, especially with the internet now. They will want to become an expert on that area quickly. And so you better do what it takes to get up to speed. But yes, I wanted to follow a big firm mentality, but serve smaller markets. So I have gone into smaller communities where we are well known individually. And it's really a great thing when people are calling you attorney nice, just like a doctor. You're wearing a suit. You're recognized. You're the top 2% education wise in the community, and people respect you for what you are and what you do for them. And the cost of living is probably 30-40% less out in more rural Indiana, if you like outdoors especially. And hey, if there's anybody listening who wants a job as a lawyer in a rural part of Indiana, you just call me, because I'm ready to set you up. But they're hard to find. But there's a lot to be said for the kinder, gentler lifestyle that you get out in more rural communities.
Love it. And so it was more about creating the lifestyle in the locations you wanted, and then servicing that community in as many ways as you could based on multiple practice areas.
Right. We're instantly the biggest law firm in a small community when we go in. And so if someone comes to the door and says, "I need an action, a quiet title," and the attorney at that location can barely spell quiet, it's okay, because we have other people who can, and we can assist. It's very hard to be a solo. I think you have to really try to get 3 to 5. And that's kind of where, if you can get to 5, it starts to take off then. Up until 3 to 5, just everybody's kind of on the gerbil trail, running the race. After that, you can start getting some leverage.
Yeah, love it. Awesome. Bob, as we kind of finish up here, I want to take us back to, our purpose, which is helping the next generation of attorneys, whether they're leaving their own practice or they are trying to grow their own practice. Could you leave us with a few just pieces of advice beyond what you've already given us, which has been tremendous?
Sure. So avoid debt. Debt is a killer. It is a crusher. And I just talked to an attorney. They went back and borrowed $2 million in government money shortly after the EIDL program, shortly after the pandemic. And they have burned through $1.2 million. And their debt level, I think it's 150 grand in interest you're paying a year. And so it's just atrocious what that does. You can never get ahead of that. So you got to scrimp and save. It's all front loaded. But the best thing you can do is to be your own line of credit. It's good to have a line of credit because there is a seasonality in the practice. In family law, in general, nobody's calling you in late July to mid-August when they're on vacation together. That's okay. They'll come back in September and be pissed at each other, and now they want to talk to you. And then nobody's going to call you in December because they're all getting warmed up for Christmas. But by golly, after the holidays do not go well, they're going to be calling you in January. But you got a plan because Christmas is when you like to spend money and probably when you're not going to make any money. And you've got to balance that out. So you got to have what Dave Ramsey calls a Hill and Dale fund to back you up. And when you've got some money in savings, you sleep better at night.
That's so true. I've found, in our firm, the most fun we've had is when we were winning, when we were feeling secure, when we had enough cash in the bank. And as debt accumulates, the first thing you have to do is fill that hole. So even if you have great months, you're still not winning because you're filling the hole.
If you come across an opportunity, which could be a big personal injury case that's going to take $50,000 or $75,000 to fund until it settles, or you want to buy a bunch of AI technology, and it takes cash to do that. So save a few dollars back, and you'll be happy you did because then you can jump ahead. You can leapfrog some of your competition.
100%. Love it. Robert, I so appreciate your time. Appreciate your insights. Obviously, huge congratulations on the growth that you've achieved, and leave us with what's the future of the Nice Law Firm look like?
Well, I'm envious of you. 30 lawyers is kind of where I'd like to be, and I'm working toward that. And I watched one of your other podcasts before the show today, and one thing they said that the barrier to growth at this level is not business, it's attorneys. So they're hard to come by, and especially in the areas where I'd like them to be geographically. So that's the challenge we're working on to overcome. We have a recruitment committee, and I'm keeping them busy.
Good. I love it. One note there that we've had to implement is partnering with the local law schools and hiring law students and graduates as law clerks and building a bench of talent that you can grow within your system over time, because it's just too hard to find that unicorn. Everybody that we talk to is looking for a great attorney. Yeah, you and the rest of us, brother, and there's just not enough of them out there. Robert, appreciate you. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and really, really grateful for the time you spent with us.
Really good being with you as well. Thank you so much.